Okay, this is a demo of the machine from two views. So we'll start by opening Bryce, um, camera to director. I'm going to use the previous demo, the cube that I had already done some Boolean intersections with. And so to start, I'm going to try to add a torus in here to make it look like a pipe or a wire coming off the top. First here, though, I'm going to rotate this so the lines line up with the axis lines. It'll be easier to move things around on the axis lines. So I just wanted to line it up. Okay, now here's the torus here, and again, I'm going to try to line that up. And I can start rotating with this wheel here, but up here I want to show you these buttons. These buttons up here are view memory buttons. They will remember certain views. So if you get lost somewhere on the canvas and you can't find your way back, just click those green buttons that you set and they'll take you back to the views that you want to remember. So here I'm just in the edit function of the torus here, the E, making it thinner here and longer. Again, I want to try to make it look like a wire coming off of there. So I'm going to spend a minute or so moving this thing around, trying to get it in a position where I can have others coming off of it too. I don't want it to look so much like a circle going down, so I'm stretching it a little bit. That's getting there. So again, when you're building your machine, it shouldn't represent anything in particular. You can use real machinery as inspiration, but for the most part, I want your machinery to be abstract. Trying to move this into the center here a little more. That's looking pretty good. I'll leave it there. Now what I can do is duplicate this and just rotate another one, and let's see if we can get another one going off of this box in a different direction. That should look interesting. For this assignment, you probably are going to want to duplicate objects at some point. Makes things easier. That's looking good right there. Now I grouped these two and then duplicated them, and now I have two more to work with, and I'll rotate those around and just move them to the back here, although that may take a while to get it adjusted just right. So it looks like you have this spider of wires coming off of this thing. I thought that looked kind of interesting. So again, top view sometimes can really help you line things up. I'm going to cover up the bottom of these anyway, so it doesn't really matter if they're exactly on, but I want to make sure at least I get the right positioning. That's pretty good right there. So again, you won't see the wires coming out of the base there, so I'll just leave it there. And let's throw in a cylinder, and we'll put the cylinder on top, and we'll have the wires coming off of that. So again, looking at it from a top view, just so you know exactly where to orient it. So at this point in the class, the modeling should get a little more sophisticated. You should really start using primitives and show some sophistication in your modeling. There should be some nice detail. For this project, you definitely want to show some Boolean intersections where negative objects and positive objects are grouped, and the negative objects cut into the positive, or cut out of the positive, I should say. Positive objects, of course, will show up. The negative objects become invisible, yet they can also take away from the positive. So here I'm just adjusting the arcs here just so you can really see them. You get this kind of like spider web network coming off of it. It's kind of neat. Spider legs, I guess. So again, I'm going to create several machinery parts, and as you see my process here, you'll see that I'm modeling them off of just basic electronics parts. Although this doesn't look like anything I've seen in a circuit, but maybe it's a heat sink or a transformer. Okay, so let me give it a texture there, and let's go for something kind of weathered looking. Tarnished tin is a good one. Again, I probably would be more selective if I had more time, but being that this is about a 20-minute demo, I'm just going to settle on that. And then let's give it some kind of rusted, weathered look here on the leads coming off the top of the box. Okay. Moving on here, I'm going to create a sphere here. I'm going to kind of create something that looks like maybe a capacitor. So I'm going to create like a disc here. So I'm going to flatten this circle. When you see when I rotate it here, I've just flattened it, just dragged in some of the axis points. And I duplicated it. And what I'm going to do is do a couple of Boolean intersections with these two spheres here that I'm duplicating. And they're basically going to cut some pieces out of the center disk or the center sphere. So you want to make your object that's cutting into the other, of course, wider, so it gets all the edge. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate that, do the same thing on the other side. Now I'll select both of those objects. Those will become negative. They're going to cut into the other object. Select my middle object. That one has to be positive. Check. Now group them together, and you'll see that the two discs along on the sides will cut into the other. That's what the negatives do. We'll give this a lead too, also, or two leads going into the ground. So again, I'm just creating some electronic type parts to look like it's some kind of circuit. But again, it makes no difference what your machine is. You can just be as creative as you want and try to make it look somewhat sophisticated. Okay, so that might do it right there. So now we've got this kind of capacitor looking thing coming out. Okay, so again, make sure you go to a top view if you really want to see if things are lining up. Make that a little thinner. And now I can just use the axis tools, drag it over, and it should be lined up dead on now. Okay, so I'm going to give this a texture here. Some kind of golden. We'll start there. Check. Okay, that's looking like an electronic part. And I can go in and change the color a little if I want. Let's go for an orange drop. There you go. Nothing too fancy, but that's alright. Okay, now I can group these together. I can duplicate it, create another one. So I'm just creating pairs here to create some interesting patterns here and what looks like a circuit or some machinery. Okay, next I'm going to create something that's referred to as a diode. And I'm going to use another Boolean intersection. I'm going to have this cube cutting into the cylinder. So basically we're going to see a half of a cylinder when I'm done with it. Okay, so I'm going to line that up. Of course, you want to make the object that's cutting into the other a little bit bigger around the edges. Here I have to bring the cylinder down to the floor here. And now I'm going to make this negative. Okay, the cube's going to cut into the other, and the cylinder is going to be positive. Okay, so I'm going to select those two, hit the G group button, and now you should see only half a cylinder. So it worked out okay there. Okay, so I'm going to give this a texture here. First, let me add some leads to this. So I have a cube here, but let's say I want to turn that into a cylinder. See these two arrows up here? I can just click up there and it'll automatically change the object to whatever shape you want. And that's when the edit button's selected on the top menu there. You can see edit is highlighted in white. And there's two little arrows to the right of all the icons. You can change an object just by clicking whatever object you want there. So here I'm trying to create some leads here coming off this piece that looks like a diode. Diodes move the energy in one direction, electricity. Okay, so again, these should come off at an angle. Again, this is a frustrating part, trying to rotate these cylinders, and especially when they're thin like this. It really is time consuming there. Control Z will undo a false move there. And so you want these leads coming off of it, and of course you need a third one. A diode here, or at least this type. So we have two in the back, and then we're going to have one in the front here. Okay, so again, duplicate that and bring that forward. And again, this will take some adjustment. It'll take some multiple views. That's looking okay, not too bad. Okay, and that looks pretty good. So I'm going to stick with that, I think. And the diodes like this are usually black, so I'll give it just a simple black texture. And now I'll group it and duplicate that again and make a pair. Again, duplicating objects like this helps you fill up your screen with detail fast too. I mean, you can also multi-replicate, like I showed you in the previous demo. That has a lot of function too if you want to replicate objects fast and in great numbers. So here I'm going to create a couple of objects that look like resistors too. You'll see resistors in any electronic circuit as well. So these are I'm just trying to create like some circuit board that has some kind of electrical function. Okay, and right here I'm just going to ungroup this, and I'm going to use the torus that's already there and duplicate that so I don't have to get a brand new one, and just move that over. Now I can go back here and regroup these. Okay, and now the challenge is to line up the cylinder with the leads here. The leads should be traveling through the cylinder. So again, from a top view I can get a nice alignment there. And then I have to come back to my director's view and make some other necessary adjustments here. Again, if you have trouble clicking on an object, remember you can click on the object, push control, and then click on the object and select the one that you want. So here I'm just stretching the leads out to try to make it fit through the center of the cylinder a little bit better, although it's not quite working out. That's a little better. Looking pretty good. Okay, that looks halfway decent. Again, make the leads a little skinnier, and that should do it. So there you go, that looks good. So you got this little resistor looking thing, and again, let's give it a nice texture here so you can really see it. Okay, good, that'll work. Again, probably would be pickier if I was doing this and not timed. But that's okay, this is looking pretty good, and I'm sure you will get the textures you want for your project. So there are a lot of possibilities for views here too. I'm going to move the light up, get rid of some of the washed effect. And I want the focus to be on this big transformer-like object I have in the background. So I'm going to bring this up in size, move it around here a little bit. But I want the eye to really focus on that object. All the other objects to me are pretty secondary. This one has the most detail. So and also to save time, I added a floor already to it. You guys know how to do that now, so I just kind of did that and changed the colors on the floor a little bit. So you can experiment with that again. So the hardest part, I think, about creating a machine that has multiple parts is figuring out how to arrange them in your view. I mean, again, we're talking about finite space and trying to cram all of your ideas into one space, and it can be a real challenge here. So I'm just going to get these resistors rotated and maybe out of the way a little bit. I just deleted that other one and I figured I'd duplicate this one now because they're the same size. So you can always delete an object and then just duplicate another one that you already have on the canvas, which is convenient and nice. So same thing, I'm going to get the capacitors in our view here. So we're getting close to the finished product, or at least one of the views here. I just want to make sure that you can really see the objects, you know. Again, I'm going to bump this up a little bit, move it over here, see what that's looking like. It's looking good, except the diodes are blocking some of the booleans. I really want to see your boolean intersections, so make sure that those are very visible when I'm going to grade the projects. I definitely want to see your boolean intersections. That's really the main thrust of this assignment, is to show me that you can do those. So I'm just going to add a wall in the back here to give a little shadow. That looks looking pretty good. Just do some final rotating on these so these capacitors show up a little better. Again, too much noodling, but you know, you shouldn't settle on something. You know, you should really find the best view if you can. So there, I got those out of the way, and now you can see the boolean a little better on the side there. That should show up a little better when I add a spotlight. Again, I'm just trying to space things out a little more, not make everything so cramped into one space. Okay, not too bad. That's looking pretty good. A nice light in there, nice shadow. Okay, and I'm going to again move this light around a little bit. Different effects here. Again, that's nice natural lighting there. I like that. It's not imposing. Now I can add a spotlight to do all my dramatic work here, or whatever light you want to try using. You know, try a few. I'm just going to use 2 lights again. I think 2 or 3 point lighting system will get you where you need to be, you know, for most lighting applications. Okay, so I'm going to go from a top view here. And I'm going to just move that spotlight back a little bit. I can see that it's pointed toward my the transformer object there. That's what I call it anyway. And now we've got, okay, so we've got a nice unimposing light there that's casting a nice glow over the object. Okay, and I'm going to use a gel here. Oop, wrong one. You want to go to procedural. And I'm going to put a greenish color on there since the transformer's body is red. So try to add a little complement to it. Bring the edge down here. Bring up the intensity. And so you've got this nice green glow on it, but it's very subtle. And also you can see the booleans better with the light and the objects. So really use lighting here to your advantage. Save image as here. It's going to be 5- your last name for your first view. JPEG file, of course, and save that somewhere where you can find it later. And then after that, you're going to find a second view. So I'm going to spend a couple of minutes here rotating around the canvas and moving around to see if I can find a nice second view. Although I don't think I'll find one that's better than the first, but we'll see. Notice in the nano preview the screen's black. That's not going to get me any view because the wall's in the way. So I need to do some more adjusting here. Again, that doesn't look like it's happening here, so that wall's just too high. So let's try another point of view here. Okay. Yeah, that's looking too dark. Trying to capture the other objects too and not just one. That could be an interesting view right there. So again, finding your second view, you can use the different view selections up here, or you can use the wheel there that I've been using. Trackball, I guess. That's alright. Let's try from this side maybe. Zoom in a little bit. No, too dark. I really don't want to add any other lights to it. So again, I'm just trying to find a final view here. So bear with me here. Okay. It's kind of lame. Let's try this again. I'm going to zoom in on this and see if I can just get a nice view here of the side of all these. That's not too bad. I like the shadows on the wall. So save time. I'll save that 5- your last name, then a 2 at the end, and save that in the same location as your other. Okay, so Boolean intersections, you want to show some sophistication, nice lighting, and you want to save out 2 JPEGs of the same machine, each of the JPEGs from a different angle.